Africa is the future within the next 50 years. I just remember there wasn't the internet to make them see. To make them see when we have sold out concerts, to make them see when we have culture changes, to make them see when a president is in the country for 17 years and probably doesn't want to leave, to make them see, the amount of Gen Zs and millennial populations that I did that now get access to the internet, to make them see when we can trend their own music and their culture here in the US, to make them see when an African or Black American goes to Nigeria, gets really appreciated and sells out over 100,000 crowds. Like, these are the things that are making them see.
Adeola, welcome to Empathy Led. How you doing, my brother?
I'm great, Genius. Nice to meet you again. It's been a minute, bro.
It has. I was looking forward to this conversation.
Absolutely. Same here. Definitely, I think, definitely we would shed a lot about, today's topic, but it's incredible to have two, African immigrants, on a podcast, shedding. I think it's going to be a different, illumination, from almost the same perspective, but different countries in Africa, from our perspective. That's great.
That's perfect. That's actually a nice segue to where I wanted to start this conversation, right? Like, what do people need to understand about you and your upbringing and the parts of your life story to understand, like, the man that you have become?
Yes, absolutely. I'm the first generation African immigrant from Nigeria. I moved to the US many years ago for my bachelor's and master's. So typical African story. I think we also discussed, I also played soccer. That was my idea, to come to the US, play soccer professionally, probably get into one of these leagues and get signed. That was my dream. But along the way, you follow the African, dream. You come in for school. Once you go to school, you have to do maybe accounting. And fortunately for me, I studied accounting, right? So I came into this country within the lens of a first generation African immigrant. That is a different view, compared to my parents and a lot of people that are also here too as well. So that is my background, with my, challenges I've kind of faced in Africa, migrating here to the US, understanding different cultural nuances. I think that was also some of the things, you'd learn from, right? So having those experiences and coming to a country that is very, how would I put it, has a lot of experiences, and also has a lot of culture. In Nigeria, we were just Black, right? Compared to a country where we have mixed races and you have to start learning, right? Relearning and unlearning a lot of stuff. So I can speak so much about my background, but one thing as a first generation African immigrant, it's a huge opportunity for myself to be in this kind of position, right? And also then go back to my country, Nigeria, and shed a lot of light. And then also so many experiences and circumstances for those that might want to come after me, right? And you can say, hey, this is the path you need to go through. And so many experiences like that. I think I would say that would be like my own experience as a first generation African immigrant coming here, with my background to the US in general,
Yeah. I mean, I just remember you talked about moving from a reality where everybody around you is Black, like, right? Everyone around you is from the same background, relatively the same story, like, right? And then to moving to a place where for the first time in your life, you are now the minority. Like, can you talk a little bit about that transition for you and how that shaped your understanding of yourself, because it has that impact, but the world and then Africa within that context?
Yeah, so I would say it's now in this age and time, there are a lot of educational materials, right? We have the internet, right? I'm sure the time we both came to the US, the internet was just growing. It was just like a young kid. So when you expect to come to America, you don't have a playbook, right? These are the stuff to do. These are the places to go. You don't have those playbooks. You come into the country and learn for yourself. So as my personal experience is like when you put in a job and you're learning on the job. Right. So that was my first, experience day one. Right. So you come here, you have no clue about what you're doing. Right. You learn on the job. You learn as a first generation African immigrant or a Black person. Right. There's some certain things to do. You need to do, maybe work harder. You need to maintain a clean slate. You have a lot of things, stereotypical stuff. Right. So you have all those backgrounds. Right. So as an individual, that really shaped me, day one. Right. So it means I had no room to make mistakes. So which means from a cultural perspective, I need to be hard on myself in terms of grades. I need to be hard on myself in terms of my ability to do even more, right? I also need to be hard on myself in my ability to be seen. So which means, grade one for a different group, demographics grade might not quantify as the same. So I have to do twice the same work. So I started building that mentality day one, right? So that way, my fellow brothers, whenever they come, I tell them this where my playbooks to where I am today, right? I had to think extraordinarily, right? So that really shaped me 100% as an individual today. Being that, it's not a culture you are prepared for compared to, when we did come. How did that really shape, also my explanation of Africa to people? That was a different reality, right? So we heard about, oh, do you guys have phones in Africa? I was like, yeah, sure, we have phones, right? We hear a lot of stuff, right? So now it's like, now how do I shape this reality for them? Because it's not their fault, right? It's also the same way I came into a country and I had no clue, so they also have no clue about Africa. So I have to now stand in as a first generation African immigrant to educate. So that is also the second step, right? So face your first difficulty as a culture shock first, get into it, get your blueprint. Now go into educating a certain demographics, right? So in college, you educate a lot of people. Yes, this is what we do. Now they're like, oh, that's interesting. What food do you guys eat? I bring out my foods and cultures and experience. That actually led to my first startup, Yale for Africans, right? I kind of built a platform for Africans to connect with their roots. Like I wasn't seeing my Nigerian brother. I was probably seeing a Togolese brother or Ghanaian brother on the pitch, but I wasn't seeing an African brother. But I love to connect with our culture and food. I built my first startup. That's how I kind of had the idea. How can I connect with my fellow Africans in the diaspora so we can share the same resources and share the same cultural experiences and then educate the masses around us? And that, we had an Indian, exit on that. So like, that was also like my second experience from I would say an educational perspective. And the final one from a leadership point of view was, when I did my thesis in HBS, Harvard Business School, on social economies in emerging trends, I really saw that, there were some misconceptions about a continent that it is underdeveloping. So it takes some extremely huge and also influential people across board, right? Working hard to begin to change those narratives. So now I have to get into the next step, right? Try to get to a place of influence where I can reach the vast majority of our different demographics to then begin to shed more light, not just on the people and culture, but the continent in Africa, their minerals and all the stuff.
Yeah. So what are some of those things that you find yourself using over and over again when you are having those educational conversations to help people really understand where you are from and the continent?
Absolutely. First, parents, thankful to my parents, right? So, where you get instilled a couple values, core values, right? Integrity, hardworking. These are some of the things they need to see. You can't preach a certain gospel if you're not how would I put it? If you're not being a full depiction of that core values, right? So it would be easy to be understood when they can see it in your daily lives, right? So, in those, if you're kind of changing the narrative that Africans aren't fraudsters, you have to be, you can't be a fraudster, right? You need to be able to do things the right way, stuff like that. So education comes from, the way people see yourself approach, right? So I had to first obviously instill some certain core values, right? That can now be easily tutored to a different demographics. And secondly, I would say empathy. The word empathy means, from my own perspective, from different angles or wide ranges of experience, I would always like to explain empathy as the ability to sense other people's emotions, right? So, and there are different emotions in different scenarios. And that would really help you to convey a certain message if you have that core skill. The ability to sense people's emotions and people's reactions, people understanding a lot of things, right? So I think that would be like the second thing beyond the main core value that I was also, being instilled from my parents or from just the experience that I can learn. And the final would be education. We need to be able to sit in a room where you can get access to more people speaking the same language, right? Knowledge, data, right? So you need to be in the same, point of view. So which I started with core values from my parents, from my upbringing, being very empathetical to people's experiences was the second thing. And lastly, education, right? If we can all be in the same room, right? No judgment, I can then best teach you, to be able to say, this is where my experiences, and I'm not judging for your experience, but these are my experiences and how I actually got here.
Yeah. Yeah. You mentioned in passing that, one of your very first ventures was that, I guess it was a platform to connect with other Africans within the diaspora. Where does that entrepreneurial, mindset or bug come from? Have you been able to reflect on that?
Yeah. Obviously, my parents. I would say more of my dad. My dad was very like had the mind of an entrepreneur. He was telling me, I think the other day, like the last time he worked for someone was 1986.
Wow.
He's always been in that mode of trying to create, innovate. You might have not gotten the right with the first, to obviously build a successful construction company back home. So I've always seen the ability that, we are not bound by the knowledge in the classroom or the education system to get to a certain degree, like PhD and master's, their blueprints. You can do so many things, right? From the inabilities and skill set, but by just finding a simple problem, right? And if you can really solve that problem, you'll be able to become, or even make something great, and have a unique solution. So that thing I'll just keep that very simple. That is like the core from my entrepreneurship. Obviously I would add maybe my experiences to, if I never had an experience if I never moved to the US, if I probably stayed in, maybe Europe that has kind of similar with Africa, right? Or went to a different, African country, I wouldn't really have had that experience to say I want to innovate something. I'll probably get into this right, So yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think since COVID, especially, but really before COVID, the internet and just emerging technologies have really lowered the barrier of entry for people that want to try their hand at entrepreneurship. But one of the very first things that you have to figure out is what do you want to build, right? Like, what do you want to build, and is that something that a large enough group of people are going to want, or that is needed in this society? Like, what is your process in deciding what to build?
Yes. One of my mentors, one of the biggest CFOs, been a huge mentor of mine while I was working at, WeWork, and like the hospitality business as an accounting manager. He made mention something, and I think I can always like to come across the same thing. He said, you can easily build a unicorn, which is a company valued at $1 billion. But if you aren't building something that people would need every single day of their lives, you can probably get exited earlier than usual. So he was always saying, do enough research on what you want to build. Get a lot of custom personas. Like, these are some of the things he kind of tutored me. And I already built 2 companies before that, right? And I kind of sold for peanuts, like I always say. But most importantly, like I always keep that step, right? Trying to get a deep customer persona, right? And one of the things I really, made mention to me, and I think we even discussed this, was, when we come to the US, we're coming for better opportunities, no doubts, right? For our families, for our friends, so many distant cousins back home, we are kind of the light, right? They see at the end of the tunnel. So we come here kind of very hardworking, following what we have to do and all this great stuff. But beyond that is us seeing a movement of money. So that's what I saw, right? There's always consistent movement of money, always consistent movement of money. That was the first problem, right? Did a lot of market research, a lot of people doing it, right? Then I thought about it, so if we're coming to a country that has a lot of credit access. I studied accounting and finance in Senior University of New York. I had no clue of my credit score, credit history in Africa. We don't even have those infrastructure. And I said, we're coming here, right? And we're coming to the US today. We have no clue of our credit history. So our home country has pretty much set up for failure in a new country. That is what it is. Point blank, period. Then we are not sending money back home. So how about a platform that really helps African immigrants to easily send money back home and not be extorted by a lot of these huge platforms, right? Competitive FX rate, because we know the benefits of that. Easy to receive, but that is just the icing on the cake. But your ability to build credit here just by doing that, and that was kind of our idea. So we went in, we started a lot of research. Like my mentor would say, a lot of consumer personals, started getting a lot of history. Oh, I use this platform. They're really expensive. Oh, I use that platform. I would tell my friends, I have this network, I have that network. And today we have over 100,000 users.
Wow.
So yeah.
Wow. That, I think there are so many diverse opinions on this idea, right? Like, some people say scratch your own itch, build something that you want, solve a
Right.
problem that you have. And then some people, so it was really great to hear your perspective on how you go about doing that. And in your case, you are almost in both of those buckets, right? Like the problem you are solving for is a problem that you as an African,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
you've already
I use my product, and it's a personal experience. Like I always mention, right? It's a personal experience for me and many African immigrants or even Africans, right? So now you're seeing Super Bowl trying to go to Ghana because they've seen there are a lot of experiences there that we can see a lot of Black, families that have roots in Ghana and they've never been in 40, 50, looking to go back now, right? You see a lot of people say, oh, I'm trying to get in touch with my roots. I'm 30% Nigerian, I'm 40% Ghanaian, right? Trying to, those are people like 10 years ago would have never dreamt about going to Africa. Now they're looking to go to Africa, right? So now there's a huge target market in Africa. So how about a platform that really helps bridge? And I look at us, African immigrants, as the bridge. We connect. We're the fastest export of culture and resources of Africa to the US. We're the fastest, because we take all our experiences to a new country and we can duplicate what we have back home, or we can even make it better, right? So we're the fastest exporter of like data, culture, whatever it is that our home country does. So like I thought about it, we are like the bridge. We merge things together. How, can we really, really provide a platform for this minority here in the US? But in the grand scheme of things, we're actually majorities, because if you add the 1.4 billion Africans globally, we're typically the majority. So like that's what we thought about, and we built that solution.
So I mean, there is data, right? There's data everywhere, but I feel like you are in the thick of it to answer this next question. Like, what is it about what is happening in Africa right now that makes it such an exciting place for everyone?
One, I'll say the power of the internet. We can never undervalue the power of the internet. It's extremely key to the light we're seeing in Africa. I was sitting with the VC yesterday. He's invested over 100 companies in Asia, and he said he's moving all his investments to Africa.
Wow.
That he believes Africa, is the future within the next 50 years. And we're having this conversation, and I said to him, what are some of the things that are driving, this, change for you? Like the ability to see. That was his response. The ability to see. And I really pondered about it, like, what were they not seeing? I just remember there wasn't the internet to make them see. To make them see when we have sold out concerts, to make them see when we have culture changes, to make them see when a president is in the country for 17 years and probably doesn't want to leave, to make them see, the amount of Gen Zs and millennial populations that that now get access to the internet, to make them see when we can trend their own music and their culture here in the US, to make them see when an African or Black American goes to Nigeria, gets really appreciated and sells out over 100,000 crowds. Like, these are the things that are making them see. But back then, they weren't able to see. You would need a reporter to go in there to see it and capture it and put it in a newspaper. Probably wouldn't want to accept it here in the US. The internet has given them the ability to see. Now, backed by data, like you mentioned, makes the world a better place. So they can put it to their formula saying, all right, based on this formula and based on this data, right, we believe this is going to lead the generation of tomorrow, Africa. I think that is the simple answer. And I think that's one of the reasons for attraction to Africa.
No, I love it, man. I love it. I love that answer so much. So then for people, and you said it earlier, like we are the bridge, right? And even that answer really almost added a sense of responsibility. Like I was like, oh wow, I am the bridge. Like what am I going to do about it? For somebody who like me hears you say you are the bridge, you are responsible for making sure that you can connect those worlds. Where do we start? Like, where does somebody like me start?
Yeah, I think it's boils down to community, right? And self-identity. If we can all identify as what we truly are, we'll be able to build a really genuine community. I'll say that one more time. If we can really, identify what we truly are, we can build a genuine community. So what that really means is, I can say you're my brother, right? We are banned within the African continent. You can be Cameroonian, I can be Nigerian, but we can build a genuine community. Now, we're Black, but we Africans, that's our true nature. We Africans, right? So we can build a community, and now we can now take it to our various sectors of engagements, right? Within the media space, within the financial technology space, and we can now start building imprints about our various experiences. One of the key things for me, even like you see when I go to speak or present, or is to wear my native attire. To let them know, like, I'm coming from a place that this is extremely acceptable. You probably haven't seen something like this. I have a suit. I can wear a suit. I look really good in a suit, but I'll put on my native attire to kind of help you understand. So you probably go back, and then indirectly that makes a statement. It's a subtle statement, right? There's someone here, like, that comes from a different background that is coming to show you something that you probably haven't heard of. So pay attention, right? So like those kind of experiences, that's how we can actually come together, form a community. Obviously, it's not as easy as we think, right? Especially when you have mega platforms like Facebook that have probably done this for a separate demographics. So we need to start creating a unique demographic, and I thought that was what Clubhouse would have done for us, probably. But sadly, you never know how entrepreneurship or building a startup can actually take you, right? But having that genuine community, and then we can upsell those data to huge enterprises. Now, I worked at JP Morgan for a couple of years in my career, and the Black demographics was one of the demographics that had the lowest accounts. So it means, one, is they don't have the data, to say I'm going to provide or reduce African immigrants loans less than 5% or 6% for mortgages, or maybe between like 3% for like auto loans or something like that, right? So if we build in a platform, for example, like Kredete, now once we hit our first 1 million users, now we can say, all right, cool, we are providing you data saying, the average 18 to 45 has a healthy credit score of about 750 or 730. Let's upsell your platform, let's upsell your loan products to this African demographics, right? That community, and from there it goes beyond financial, pieces. We can, we're also thinking about communities too within our platform. How can we create small communities, right? So I can educate you, for new guys that are coming in, right? Or a Cameroonian that comes in, or a Nigerian that comes into the country under 5 years. I can say, hey, you don't want to go to this route. You want to go to a certain route. So kind of building that community. So when people are coming in, right, they're able to follow some sort of blueprint, is what I would say is where we can start from.
Yeah. I mean, we've already alluded to your company several times, and it was kind of a roundabout way to get you. But now I want to ask the pointed question: like, tell us a little bit about your most recent project, because you are, after all, a serial entrepreneur, right? Like, this is not your first rodeo. So tell us about your latest venture and the incredible opportunity that you guys are looking to seize and capture.
Yes, absolutely. So started it off as a B2B SaaS, for Africans. We're still doing that, right? And we're already growing. We already have that on I would say on auto pilot, where we have lenders within Africa kind of providing those educational piece to lenders, banks, and giving out loans to those that really deserve it. That's how we started. But then we saw that then there's a community here in the US that has a certain amount of need that is not being met, but it's being met by different demographics. I don't know if I can mention names about other companies, but there are some certain companies that provide access to Africa that they don't really understand the data of Africa or the culture. So I think we talked about that at length. So many remittance platforms, so they're probably charging too much from an African, and Africa doesn't want to pay this certain thing, right? This is how we like to do stuff. We don't really need to see targeted ads. We really are big on incentivized referrals. I'm going to refer my 10 friends if you're going to give me $10, right? We have our culture, we have our data, we have everything, right? We have our piece. So we thought about it. If we're building a remittance platform to Africa, it shouldn't just end there. There needs to be a huge impact, and I'm very big on impact. Even if it comes with revenue, but there is an impact, notwithstanding, right? So what that means is the ability to build your credit via every single transfer you're sending back home. And we were able to partner with a bank here in New Jersey, the bank that has access to over 50 states in the US. We're able to send money to 20 African countries today, and every transfer would actually build your credit, count your credit score or report. And we're the only one doing that today, and we're literally flying because it's one is a need, and we're also making impact, overall.
Yeah, no, that's Man, I have not shut up about credit since I've worked with you guys and help advise when you were a part of RevTech Lab. I think what you all are building, not just what you are building, but the way you are going about it, is really what is quite remarkable. So, um, how big is the company now? And like, tell us a little bit about where the company is now in terms of the suite of services that you provide, your headcount, and maybe the next 5 years as you see it.
Yes, so absolutely. So our main hub, we're a Delaware City Corp, obviously headquartered here in New York, but we have our main hub in Lagos, Nigeria. That's where a lot of our staffs are. So as of today, we're 20. We have a headcount of 20. We have guys moving to Dubai. It's better like working conditions. So we can say like we're pretty much between like Dubai, London, here in New York, myself, and Atlanta, Georgia. We have a head of people and culture in Atlanta, Georgia, as of today. So like we kind of spread across like the North America, United Emirates, and also Africa. That's kind of our main hubs, today. From where we really see ourselves in 5 years, it's simple. I've done a lot of research on a lot of companies that have done just the same thing for different demographics. I don't know if you know, still they're really within the Indian market and they've done extremely well. So immigrants has a huge opportunity, if done well here in the US. And that's what we're kind of seeing, right? African demographics, we're pretty much excluded from a lot of benefits here in the US. So what we're looking to do is rope you guys in by providing the best FX rates to send back home, send to your family members, make it more convenient. We keep you and retain you on our platform by your ability to build credit, and how we can have you for the next 5 years would be to get the best mortgage interest rates powered by credit over the next 5 years, right? So you can actually build generational wealth from an African immigrant. And whoever comes in, a Nigerian, a Cameroonian, comes into the US, they know that there's a go-to platform that they can use to start building that journey, right? Rather than having to wait 5 years like I did myself, start building my credit, right? Because my home country didn't give me that education. So we start doing that. So like that's where we are today, like I mentioned, we're over, like, I think we're probably going to cross 200,000 users in the next couple of weeks, spending over 100K in monthly revenues, or raising capital just to kind of expand our growth here in the US. We're seeing a huge, massive opportunity. That's how we've been able to kind of really listen to our customers. That's the first step. Really listen to what they're looking to do, and also share them our vision. This is what we're looking to do, right? And many platforms like this obviously gives us the ability to connect with our potential customers.
Yeah. I mean, I think really there is no two better things that can help you really flex your empathy muscle than being part of the demographic that you are solving for, and really making a point to receive real feedback from your users or from your customers. And like for me, there are many things that make me so bullish about credit, but like those two pieces, how close you guys are to your user through your platform, and that the quick feedback loop that you guys are getting with every transaction, with every conversation, with every new service or product that you guys launch, like you keep getting data about what people want and your ability to respond to that need too. Like you guys understand, like, oh, these people we need to build it fast. And like I've been so impressed by how responsive you guys have been to the needs of the platform and how those needs are evolving, and just adding pieces at the neck breaking pace, man. I don't know how you guys do it.
Shout out to my team. And I think that is, we can probably add empathy within startups. Startups are not really empathetical. We can see that because it's a race that is not built with empathy. So as a founder, trying to have some sort of empathy on the race and also those that are working around with you, most importantly, I think that was something I really learned early from life and also from my past rodeos, right? I was never really close to those we're building. Right now I'm extremely close to every single person. I'm a phone call away. We can talk about what you need to do within work and outside work. I can, these are guys that work around the clock, because I work around the clock. So it's like their motivations to work around the clock as well. So even if I don't have to tell them, right? And that's the the ability to ship something extremely fast. You
Yeah.
know,
One of the things that really come up for me as I hear you talk about a company where your employees are spread across different continents and different geographic, I know it's a challenge that many leaders are facing right now. How do you build a strong remote team? How do you build culture in that way? Like how do you think about those pieces? Like, one, how do you build a strong, effective, high performing team when everybody is remote? And then how do you build the kind of culture that you are talking about, where people are really walking around the clock? Because like there is really no incentive that can make a human being walk around the clock. Like it takes
right.
something different for
Yep.
somebody to have that kind of commitment and devotion to their work.
Yeah. So I would say for me, probably answer this for second one would be first, shout out to our head of people and culture, Faye. She's the brain behind, building an effective culture within startups and even our startup, right? So she went to Canadian University here in the US. She worked at Uber. So she has all of the experiences,
Mm.
personal experience in that she was able
She
to
learned
bring.
something at Uber, all right?
Yes, absolutely. So she was able to bring something early on to, try to, we aren't looking for a solution when things are faltering. We trying to create a kind of healthy work environment day one, even if we don't have $1 billion in the bank,
Yeah.
right? We wanted to build that so that way when we do get to that point, things are not obviously not going haywire. So shout out to Faye. I'm not going to take credit, even if I have some part into the beauty mechanism, but she really done an amazing job with helping us to build the proper culture amongst our guys working. And to answer the first question would be never build or never hire someone that doesn't share the vision of what you're building early on. I can say every single person that works at Kredete today shares the same vision of what we're trying to do. And we're very lucky because that is not by how perfect you are. I think it's pretty much luck and blessings and grace, right? So that is how we're able to get the best workers in the world, the best team, right? That shares the vision of what we're trying to build. I tell them I can literally sleep for 2 hours and wake up. I'm like, I think we need to do this. And I tell them the reason why, and they tell me this doesn't really align to what we want to do in Q2. It doesn't align. I'm like, okay, cool, that actually makes sense. Let's shoot that out. Let's do this, right? So they aren't just going based on, whoa, this is what everyone is focus on the core vision, right? The core vision is what is driving everyone. And if the core vision drives you, if you're an engineer, like our backend engineer on Sunday literally sent me like, oh, I was thinking about a marketing strategy we need to do. Like, you're a backend engineer, what are you thinking about, right? So, but has a lot of information from his experience and said, hey, I worked at this company and they did this and it worked. All right, I think we should implement this too as well. So it's just working beyond what you're pretty much giving to you and being extremely proactive. So shout out to my team for sharing the same exact vision. It's not easy to get to having a head kind of over 10, over 20, and everyone shares the same vision with what we're looking to achieve. So that means the hurdles are, we're all sharing the same hurdles. We're sharing the same blessings. We're sharing the same good news. We're all coming together to share the same vision. That's what it pretty much means.
Yeah, no. I mean that for an engineer to think about, marketing really speaks a lot to the kind of culture that you all are building. There seems to be a sense of ownership that everyone has about the company. So
Correct.
you mentioned a shared vision as kind of a foundational building block to the kind of culture that you guys are. What are some of those other principles that you guys are really thinking through and being intentional with as you are thinking about building this company and building the kind of culture where people can think across departmental lines, all because they want to see this vision become reality?
Yes, I think being very proactive. Also something else. I learned a lot from my mentor. The second thing he also taught me was because then we work, all of these companies were startups, right, within the hospitality space. Second thing he mentioned was the best advantage for a startup and best disadvantage for a startup is time. And I really took that to heart even to today, right? So it means if you're looking to work with or find somebody that would share your vision, right? From a strategy perspective, they need to be proactive. And they need to cover your blind spot versus you having to see everything, right? So, for example, I'm not a full 100% full stack developer back in code. So learning that early on, right? But I have guys who are way better than me. But they know that they can't pick up. I'm going to pick up the slacks, right? So from a accounting perspective, that's my bread and butter, right? I can do that for my sleep. So my finance guys aren't picking the butter. I'm going to do that. I'm going to reconcile the books. We're going to close the books in 10 days, like we agreed on, right? I'm going to push in more than 18 hours, a week, or even 24 if I have to do that, right? So within an operation strategy, if you aren't giving my necessary KPIs, I'm going to jump in and get the desired KPIs because we're all one unit. So what that really means is time is the greatest advantage or disadvantage. So we're all coming together. So when you're looking to hire, that is one thing you should pretty much look at. And that's what we did look at. And we're still looking at today, right? Your ability to be very proactive. We put you on a probationary period for certain days for us to really maintain and also monitor your ability to be very proactive, to that core vision. Is this also something that you do not understand, right? So, not everyone really understands, and we didn't get this right day one. It took us a couple try and errors, right? From devs, to, various departments to really understand the core vision, right? Some just do not have the capacity to understand your core vision yet till it has blossomed, while some have the ability, right? So from the initial conceptualization phase, we're looking at that, synergy. Like, do you really understand how big this can actually get to, right? Give me instances of what we can actually get to, right? Have this conversation. We did town halls. Startups don't do town halls early on, right? So we had conversations, right? I went to Nigeria multiple times. I went to meet them, had conversations. Hey, do you guys really understand how big this can actually get? Or are you just saying, oh, this is just something we can develop? Because everyone can build something, right? But if it's the main pain point, you want to get the interaction piece, and that's what we really did. I in this world of remote, like we mentioned, but I had to leave my home over 16 hours back to Nigeria to really meet with them at various places, have one-on-ones with them, see them in person, understand, have those conversations. Also via Zoom, have those conversations. Let's speak about how well you understand the vision and how big this can actually go. And over time, we kind of actually maintain, that core focus. So I think that was kind of what we did, and we're still doing today. Obviously, we're still very much early within the phase. So
Yeah.
we're kid within the startup journey.
No. I love it, man. I love it. I think once everyone understands where we are going, that's how you get people contributing to that vision, right? It's impossible to have that kind of ownership, to have that kind of initiative if you don't understand how your piece fits into the whole, if you don't understand the vision. And I think a lot of companies are guilty of keeping that information close to the vest, which makes it impossible for an employee to come up with an idea that you could have never imagined. But the only way somebody can contribute in that way is if they understand the big picture, if they see the vision and they understand how this idea can contribute to that.
Yes, absolutely. I 1000% agree with you. And it's also, I would say it's also a thing where you see startups are kind to how would I put it, to revolutionize that work experience, compared to like back then. A lot of just big companies, I also had experience working for KPMG. You just have your set strategies. You don't speak to your boss, to when your boss obviously have. So with startups, we were looking to democratize that work experience, to say, hey, I'm going to tell you my vision from day one, right? I'm going to run you through our product roadmap. Tell me if this makes sense or not. Giving them the ability to share the vision, like we mentioned, right? I'm not giving you a finalized report telling you what I need you to do, because what then happens is you're going to move away from being proactive, which means you're only going to come into the office and work on your assigned task and leave.
Yeah.
You don't share common vision. But when I tell you day one, this is what we're looking to do, and you tell me this doesn't really make sense, or let's tilt this, or let's see how we can add this. I've seen this happen in a couple, so there isn't a mold. We don't have a differentiator, right? So I'm like, okay, cool. I didn't see this. Obviously, come in. We go back to the drawing board. Let's be together, right? So that helps them to really understand that they're working across and within the vision, and it's easy to communicate that way versus giving you a finalized report. I need you to build this in 3 weeks. And they're just going to work on it, and they're moving away from being proactive.
Yeah. For the people that cannot see me, I have the biggest smile on my face right now. And this is how I am every time these guys start talking about what he's building in this company. So let's talk about fundraising a little bit, right? So it's challenging enough to pitch an idea to a VC when you are going from 0 to 1, right? Like there is an ability to communicate and to paint a picture for something that does not exist in the world quite yet,
Right.
and to make somebody else see that vision. But I think your challenge is compounded, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but I think your challenge is compounded because more often than not, those people don't even understand the user that you guys are building this for. They don't understand Africa. They don't understand the culture. They don't understand the nuances from Cameroon to Togo to Nigeria to Ghana, right? Like, so that is a daunting task. How do you tackle that massive challenge?
Yeah, I'm still learning. It's never, fundraising will kick your ass so much that even when you think you've kind of hacked it, you are starting from scratch every time you need to fundraise again. So like you mentioned, it's if you are able to build a community that can preach the message to a greater audience, it will make my job easier to fundraise. So which means, like we mentioned, there's we have a role as Africans in the diaspora to connect, to bridge, to merge. And the more we do this, the more we make it easy for companies and founders, African founders, to raise money, which means a lot of VCs would have heard about it, right? So
Mhm.
that is one of the first steps that is missing. So it's kind of, I would say, 3 times harder because we're building that. And I'm going to take a playbook from the Latin American demographics, because they also struggling with the same thing, but they've kind of had a better breakthrough because now you're seeing Latin Americans here in the US creating VC funds solely for Latin American founders or companies. But within the Black ecosystem, we're still much spread across multiple demographics. So we're still fighting with the same piece of the puzzle with the different demographics for our fund that should be specific for certain demographics. That's one of the things that I have seen. It comes from where you have multi unicorns headed by an African founder to shed more light, and also create a product used by a certain demographics that is owned by the same demographics. Is very key because in rooms that we need our same culture or same demographics to speak about a huge problem, we don't want a different demographic speaking about it. And there are a lot of platforms today that are built for Africans in the diaspora, African immigrants that are not coming from the same demographics. And we are, you can never shame technology. Technology is here to stay. But there's also a disservice that does to early startup founders like myself, right? Saying, I understand the personal experiences attached to what I'm building. So it's not just for me, it's for 65 million African Americans and Black immigrants here in the US that need this product. Saying that would make a lot of huge difference, which is why I'm pitching, joining a lot of communities, telling them my experiences, but it's extremely hard. So like that has been some of the things I kind of learned is it's not really the case of not them wanting to invest, but they haven't gotten enough data, enough information to plug it into their formula to say this would work. We have these huge guys, the NFLs, we can pitch to the NFL. Those guys are doing, PE, private equity deals. I'm talking about early stage that have 30 million, 40, 50 million, 100 million within the asset under management that invest in under 1 to 5 million from a seed to Series A investments, right? So if we're looking at that demographic, they don't have enough data yet. So, that is something we, as Kredete, as an individual, right, person, as an African immigrant, and also as a company, Kredete, and many more companies like Kredete, based here in the US, we need to be the ones pitching about a certain demographics of what we're building, because that would then send a message that we understand the experiences firsthand, and two, we are building a solution that not only we're going to use a certain amount of data, we'll use the same in our platform. So but it's just our current ecosystem, and it's also a bad time to fundraise. I'll add that too as well. Compared to 2021, where things were a lot easier to fundraise, there was a lot of money flowing out there, a lot of liquidity coming from venture firms. Even venture firms are finding it hard to raise capital from their limited LPs. So it's extremely hard to fundraise right now. So you need to be extremely, you need to extremely stand out. And as an African immigrant company, you need to extremely stand out, multiply by 3. So
Yeah.
that's just, yeah.
Yeah. Well, luckily, it's part of that African ethos, right? Like you knew from day one that you will have to stand out. You will have to do 3x, 10x, whatever the next person did in order to be afforded the same opportunity. So, I feel like yesterday I posted something that I had said in an interview, just like this one, where I talk a lot to minority students, and I tell them that you will encounter a lot of things that are not fair, and you can cry about it, or you can look at it as, well, this is forcing me to be excellent. This is forcing me to become the very, very best that I can be, because unfortunately, or fortunately, it is the price of admission. And the silver lining there is that, well, you get to be the best in what you do, and society and the world becomes the beneficiary of that kind of pursuit of mastery and excellence.
Correct.
Of course, we wish everyone will be afforded the same opportunity, and hopefully as a society and as a world, that's where we're going toward. But in the meantime, we need a little bit of perspective in saying, okay, I'm gonna decide that every obstacle is an opportunity, and I'm gonna treat the obstacle as the way forward.
Yes, right. I think I really love what you said. If as an African immigrant migrating to this country, you need to have that civil line and understanding that everything would not be fair, right? You're coming into an ecosystem where things already works. You're just going to fill it in, right? So if you're filling in, into a certain demographics, right? It's very hard. I also have this an analogy where why I have something to say, right? The first sand to fill the bucket and the last sand to fill the bucket are the only ones that are being noticed. You can have 10,000 sands that fills that bucket, but the first and last are the ones we notice, right? So, but what would really happen is if the middle sand probably moves away from the bucket or something happens, then people remember, oh, after 9,992 sands, this happened, right? So that has been my ethos, right? For me to create a certain awareness, I have to work extremely hard, and not to just stand out, to build a core value of hardworking, a hardworking value within myself and instill that value across many years, right? So I need to stand out. I need to work a lot harder, not for anyone, but for myself. And that has kind of really shaped and molded me. So I really like what you said, and I really agree, right? On things won't be fair, but you need to just, pretty much grace up yourself and pretty much just keep going.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So you mentioned earlier that some of what will make the fundraising easier was for more venture capitalists and more funds to be specific to the demographic that you're serving. But as we see, they are starting to get a little bit of backlash, and there was the Freedom Fund that was recently sued
Correct.
for
Yeah.
discrimination.
Yeah.
Like, how do we navigate those kinds of challenges?
So when I mean to a certain demographic, I think it's, we need to put in, a certain caveat, and there's some certain things that can actually be done, right? So within um a lot of venture funds, they are backed by LPs, right? And the LPs are not just investing money, they're creating an investment committee, right? The IC saying, hey, for this company to pass IC and get the cash investment, they must meet this certain criterias, right? They must be in this geographic, location, right? They must be maybe in the West Atlantic region or the North, whatever it is. They must also, let's say, maybe or a fintech company or enterprise software, categorized, the industry which they're kind of creating a company on. And finally, right, they must really attain to a certain, function. So it's not about the demographics, right? So I'm not saying that they should create funds that are solely backing Black or African, funds. It means backing companies that will impact some sort of Africa, right? That has some sort of transaction in Africa, not the person that is investing in it. So, and in most cases, when you're going through the necessary due diligence, you would know that folks with personal experiences are much more likely to solve something better because they have that experience versus
Absolutely.
someone without that experience. So I think that is how the a method to really like kind of drill. I'm guessing, I've been within this space from the other angle, so I've kind of seen how VC funds are being created a little bit, to know that these are definitely ways you can actually create these funds, not just specifically for certain demographics, but a company that really solves for a certain demographic.
Yeah.
Right. So we're only investing in a company that solves remittances to Africa, only investing in a company that solves about medical help to Africa. Climate change is in Africa, right? Then you can now select, people that are coming to apply. You can say we're selecting based on your company's ethos. What is your company ethos? Are you looking to solve something in Africa anytime soon or not? Oh, so we only invest in companies in Africa. So that are kind of, but versus when you just bluntly say you only support like funding African, founders, that is definitely discriminatory and should probably, have some sort of legal actions.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I actually disagree with the people that think, oh, it's not fair to have funds that are only that only fund black, black people, because I think there is a reason why those funds exist to begin with. They wouldn't exist if there wasn't a need for it. But I really, really love the way you are thinking about it, because I think that is the solution. Like we're going to continue to see backlash for those kinds of like specific fund, but to really rethink it outside of the demographic and focus on the problem that you are solving for, I think it is actually the right way and the perfect roundabout, because I don't think these kinds of BS lawsuits are going to stop. And I think the way for us to really like a perfect solution to that is to think about it exactly the way you are thinking about it. And it just, when you were talking about it, it just reminds me of something that we say to our clients all the time, that instead of focusing so much on a specific demographic or focusing so much on a specific product, like you need to think about a problem, or you need to think about like a human need that people solve. And then within that human need, of course, sometimes it's going to be a specific demographic, but it really frees you from the kind of like blind spot and putting people in a bucket that often leads to stereotyping, when you free the solution from the demographic and really just focus on the problem and the need, or the human experience that you are trying to make better or to see better. Yeah, I really love that. So we're almost coming up to the end of this conversation, and I wanted to end on a question, like, of everything you are seeing so far, within the African ecosystem, within the diaspora, like, what makes you the most excited, the most, what stokes your fire about Africa in the next 10, 15, 20 years?
It's I think beyond just the internet, now we have education coming to various parts of Africa that wasn't, or they weren't afforded the opportunity for education, right? So many, you see a lot of, the family of five, they all save money to just send one of their siblings to Europe, to US, right? To kind of bring the light right now. So what we're saying is you don't have to travel. We can bring education to you. The likes of YouTube, you can learn anything. All my developers are engineers. They're engineers living in Lagos, Nigeria. I can bet my chest they can also work in Microsoft or Google, just about the same, right? So those are some of the things that they get excited. The workforce, the creator economy, right? So now, we're seeing a lot of Africans get so funny that, they get booked by people from a different demographics, right? So we're seeing the culture, the food, people looking to try it, the native, foods, right? Because there's a lot of, friendly competition between the various African countries about a certain delicacy, so things like that has kind of now brought us an ability to now illuminate the right things to developed countries like the US, Europe, a lot of places. So I think that's what really excites me, like, because we've been creating these things for so many years, right? But the internet just been carrying what they can carry. So now we're telling them now education comes in, we can show them how educated we are, right? So just think about it. In university, when I was in university in Nigeria, the best grade was 75. That was A. 75 was A. And trust me, no one ever got a 75 because
Nah,
it
not
was
in
it was
Africa, man. Whatever the grade you need, whatever the score you need to have an A, the teacher will make sure no one gets
no one
anywhere
gets it.
near that grade.
My professor tells me back in the university, it was like A is for me, B is for God, C is for everyone, right? So literally we're all struggling, and we know we're an A student. I came to the US and I literally had a 4.0 GPA, literally, and I was considered like a B student in Africa, right? So just imagine talking about the A students, what they're doing, developing brain AI biomedical products, that are probably going to change the world, right? So those kind of things is what we need within Africa. So migration is good. I'm always going to give given this opportunity to speak about the concept of immigration versus immigration. So people are moving to the US, but some people that have been here for a long time are moving back.
Yeah.
Right. My dad has been here for many years, and he finally moved back to Nigeria. Right. So, one person has left the US, and we have 5 people coming in. Right. So recycling of, experiences, also bringing in different cultures. There's a concept that actually does work. Right. It's that concept of immigration versus immigration. And it also works within various immigrants here in the US. And that really sheds a lot of light. So now, a 20-year-old kid coming in that knows so much about coding doesn't have to start from scratch, can get an opportunity to work for Google, Microsoft, and can build the next Facebook or Instagram, right? So watching that level of education really come into Africa, a lot of rural areas are now being schools are being built. That's really what really excites me. So that way, when the light is being illuminated on us in Africa, they're pretty much shining the lights on the right things, so that way a different demographics here in the US can be educated the right way.
Yeah. Man, this is such a wonderful place to end the conversation. I too, when you think about how youthful the demographic in Africa is, and you couple that with education and technology, no wonder everybody is super excited, and I feel so inspired every time I talk to you. I feel a sense of heightened responsibility to be a part of that change, and to be a part of that bridge that you talked about, and I hope in due time I will be able to find the best way I can contribute my piece to that edifice. And I just wanted to take this moment to thank you for the work that you are doing, for your foresight, for your vision, and the work that you are doing, not just to make credit accessible, but to really improve lives of people across the continent. So thank you, man, on behalf of all of our brothers and sisters.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. You two are doing a great job. I think I can't really, on the value provided to us at the Reflect Labs, in regards to shaping our story, and I think I told you, I was like, I wasn't really focused on the story until when I needed to. I think you were like the illumination that I needed to really say, hey, this would also help me to properly communicate the vision to our teammates. So now we stopped doing we were not doing before, we started doing it now. We're like, hey, the first day of the new year, we're going to start talking about our product roadmap for the entire year, right? So everyone knows we can all come together. So thank you so much. Obviously, you help a lot of us to best articulate and also communicate, and also be freely able to build the next big thing. So I really do appreciate you as well.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you.